here. My name is Kathryn and Lejuene. Now the filmmakers who are in attendance come up. I've never seen that one before, but I guess see everything. All right. Come on down. Great. Hi, yes, have a seat. Grab the other mic. Put that down. Okay, great. Okay, just have you guys introduce yourselves one at a time and say your name and your role, your film and your role in the film. And the film, like your play, like what you did in the film and your film.
Hello everyone, my name is Lejuene.
A little closer, thanks.
Hello everyone, good evening. My name is Lejuene. I am the director of Urban Force to Make Art with I Suppose. I'm from Long Beach, California. I'm the director. First of all, I just want to say I'm very grateful to be, a part of this event and to be able to share the space with these wonderful, amazing filmmakers, and I'm very grateful to be here.
Great, thanks. Oh, can we get Lan to?
Hi everyone, I'm here with Levi. He's the film director. I'm just here to support him in his community work.
And your name?
Oh, my name is Sam. This is the first short video, film video I saw.
Hi everyone, thank you for being here. It's such an honor to be at Cambodia's Mountain Film Festival. I'm Tawdry Crouch. I produced, wrote, and directed the short documentary, The Healing Circle. So this is its festival premiere. This is the first film festival it's screened at, and this was really the one that I wanted to make sure that we screened at because it means everything to be here. I grew up in Long Beach, so I'm from Long Beach, but it's been a long time since I've been back or have had some many connections to it. So this is truly my connection, along with my family who are here, my friends. So.
Likewise, as everybody else, thank you for having this festival. I'm Lejuene, and I am one of the subjects in my brother's life. Thank you for having me. Also, Long Beach native.
Hi everybody, my name is Lejuene. I'm the director of Kids for Redemption. I was raised in Long Beach, California. This is my hometown, and I'm so honored to have this film featured in Lejuene Film Festival. Truly is an honor. Thank you.
Great, yeah, these were three very different films, but I felt like there was still a lot of similarities that came through in a lot of them too. One thing I noticed that they all really touched on was that, we have this past, we all have a past behind us, and we can choose what we want to do with it, right? Like whatever happens behind us, we choose what the future is. Right, so whether it's making art or whether it's leaving it behind us, that is what it is. And art is a lot of a choice that we choose to do. So I want to start with all the way down at the end there with the would it be foolish to make art with eyes closed? So that's such a beautiful title. And of course, like, can you talk about just the name of the title of the film? And it seems obvious, right? How would you make art with your eyes closed anyway? But how did you come up with the title and these pieces? They were beautiful. I don't know if anyone raise your hand or make some noise if you were there at the kickoff party on Friday, where I bet you guys were there. That was so much fun. If you weren't there, make sure you buy a ticket next year because it's always so much fun, and you're always supporting the film festival. It's always a great time, and it means a lot to us to be there. But we got a chance to see your art in person, and it was so beautiful to see it in person, and it was really awesome. So yeah, it'd be great to like talk a little bit about the title of the film itself.
Being a subject matter in this Levi story, I just give you a little background. I was Levi's supervisor, and he is at Cal State Long Beach, and his supporters are out there. You guys can clap. The whole team out there. And I said, Levi, okay, I'll be your subject, and because Levi also, by the way, is half Khmer and half Latino. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't want to share that. So we have a good working relationship. I really mentor you, and I hope that I'm a good supervisor and whatnot. But also, the subject of the artwork is, I want to tell a story, but as a creator, I make my art and things anyway, and then from there, Levi and his team put the script together and guide, and I just help direct a little bit in terms of just, this makes more sense. I want to focus on this topic, this artwork instead, and just not everything I've done in the past that wasn't okay.
Hey everyone, so as far as the title of the film, I want to give the credit all to my director of photography, who was actually present here. Her name is Kathryn. Originally, the working title was The Artist's Journey. However, I asked for her counsel for, as far as what will be a better name for this film. And she came up with this idea, and it really resonated with me because it really connected to what this film is really about. It was, anybody can make a stick figure, anybody can draw anything, but the real meaning behind Seon and his work is the intention and the way that he uses it to not only connect with himself, but with people around him.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah. One thing I loved so much about your film was that it just felt like your calming presence so much it really came through, and you used so many of the films tonight and throughout the whole festival, you used a lot of music, and which I love. I mean, I love music, I'm a huge fan, but you were very calming throughout the whole film, and it felt like almost like a meditation in and of itself throughout the, your film, and you have such a calming presence. And the film itself was very meditative itself. Do you feel like that when you're making your art?
Well, making art is healing, right? Even for those of you that do it to process, especially, going from my background of being a refugee. So that was a healing process for me, and also to be able to share that out there. I know, this work is hard. Healing and working on yourself is an ongoing work every day. So, and I know some of the movies that cover that too, through music.
Right, thank you. Great. And then let's move on to the healing circle. This was different. This had a lot of energy, a lot of joy, right? This was, I love the aunties, the three aunties. Joy came through so much in the storytelling. And I wish I had three aunties like that, just coming around and always boosting and riding me around, I feel like. Can you tell me how did you get involved with the stories? How did you meet them?
I was a board member, I was on the board of the National Cambodian Museum, which is based in Chicago, as pointed out in the film. So this was one of the programs, was a healing, a music and healing arts program. That's one of their principles in their programming mission is to put front and center Cambodian cultural arts, so whether that's through dance, music, and then couple that with storytelling. And you saw Ada Chang, she's a professional storyteller. She facilitates these storytelling workshops. She was hired by the museum to facilitate a storytelling workshop with our three aunties here. So this started pre-COVID. The workshops, as y'all lived through the pandemic, we witnessed just this complete shutting down of any in-person activities. So it was taken online. The program itself was taken online. But I was able to sit back and sort of witness that combination of storytelling, music performance in partnership with Kathryn music. So you had all these sort of layers and elements. This film could have easily been a feature. So again, as Praj pointed out at the beginning, the challenge of telling this short story, that in itself is a craft, right? How do you tell a whole story? So many elements that you can bring into it. How do you selectively pull those elements together to tell a complete, satisfying story? So that was a challenge. Not too much on sort of the backstory of how we got involved, but it was in witnessing that and really being inspired by the strength and that relationship that these three aunties had together. They were friends, but they also were able to provide each other courage and strength because it wasn't easy. The process of having to reflect on the dark times in their lives during the genocide, during their travel and escape, and during such a difficult time in their lives, they were able to support each other and show that they're not alone in the process of healing. So yeah, it was really that inspired me.
That's wonderful. And so it seemed like, tradition played a big part of it too, like holding on to those traditions that like kept them going from before and kept them going into now and teaching them into the next generation, right? And so why do you think that's so important to hold on to that, and why those specific songs? She was saying like from birth to now and like naming all those different types of like moments in life. Why do you think that those specifically for her, like, and for those friendships, like, how do you see those moving on in, like, those modern times? Like, do you think those are still going to hold meaning, and why do you think that those are going to be specifically important for us today?
Whether or not we're conscious of it, music is a part of our lives. We hear it, whether it's popular music, or that we hear over the radio. Now, specific to what she was explaining, so Nisa Pao is the resident artist, the resident musician at the museum. She is a classically trained musician. She's learned from Cambodian musical masters ahead of her to carry on that tradition. That is how it works. You teach the next generation, right? It's a passing on of knowledge, cultural knowledge, and I think she does such a beautiful job of explaining the role of music in Cambodian culture particularly. It's everywhere, from the time that you're born, through cultural practices, to the time that we die. We're not fully aware of that, even as, those things aren't distilled because there's a breakage when war happens, dislocation, displacement, trauma. The challenge is how do you bring the pieces back together? And that's sort of the role that we're trying to do now that we're in a position to do that, especially as a younger generation. You said being a younger generation, us being the younger generation, we can help put the pieces back together. And that's where I feel the responsibility of the artist. Artists, a waste, right? Everything that they've gone through, everything that we've witnessed, we're in a position to help heal.
All right, let's move on to you guys. So like with Chasing Redemption, that just, like I said, I was still wiping my tears as I was coming on stage. It's so hard. Your story, Dara, Tommy's story, it's just these people who are thrust into these situations that no one would ever want to have to go through. And that's just kind of like what we've seen through all of these short stories, or short films, and throughout a lot of these stories that so many people have unfortunately gone through, that we've seen all weekend, where people are thrust into situations that no one should ever have to go through. And just the bad hits just keep coming and coming, and people make decisions that they shouldn't have made, they're forced to have made, and then they have these repercussions that again are unfair, and it just seems like the cards are stacked against them, and you're asked the question of what is justice, right? What is justice in an unjust world? And so your film really does it so beautifully, where you're not really asking for forgiveness, you're not really asking for you to say like, okay, well, what should the justice system then look like? You're just like asking you to look at what a human looks like. And I think that you did that really, really beautifully. So I'm wondering kind of like, what else are you trying to do with this film series? You mentioned at the end that there's hundreds of other people with this story. I would say like probably thousands, right, of other people with this story. Where else do you want to take this series?
Absolutely. Dara and Tommy's story is not an anomaly. It's not a one-off. There are thousands of people who are subjected to the sentence of life without the possibility of parole. And when we peel back the layers on, how Dara, received that sentence, right? What led to that, right? When we peel back those layers and we juxtapose it with, the trauma that we all experience with the genocide. Our parents experienced that. We came to this country and they didn't speak English, they didn't have any resources, they didn't know how to heal from that, right? And because there was no process of healing, us as children, survivors of that genocide, we were kind of, left by the wayside, if you will, right? Because, culturally, we don't talk about, the trauma that we've experienced, right? It's like a hush-hush thing that we don't mention. So that just continues to feed into that cycle of trauma in and of itself. And Dara's story is my story as well. There's so many other people's stories and Cambodians that exist in Long Beach, Philadelphia, Lowell, wherever, right? Because they're finding pockets where they feel accepted, they feel, warmth. As negative as it is, like a gang community is welcoming them, right? And I think it's incumbent on us to address that so we can help nurture and heal our community, right? And, looking forward to see what the series looks like, I do want to, tap into women who have been sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, currently incarcerated folks that are sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, because there are people that exist in these warehouses that we call prisons that are, like, they're changing themselves. Like they have no hope of ever coming home, but they understand the magnitude of harm that they have caused into their community. And all they want to do, just like Dara and Tommy, all they want to do is serve their community. And I think, if that's what change looks like, I welcome that change, and I would love to have more Daras and Tommies in our communities to help foster a more stronger community.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And it was such a powerful moment, Dara, to hear that something as simple as like love you from your mother for the first time was what set you on that path, right? Like hearing something like that and just knowing that as us as a community, like what can we do in our own community, like spreading love, right? As community, talking to other people, to also, you never know when that can also set someone on that path as well. So I just want to know, like you, that moment, that spark is what really truly set you to want to change. And can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, for sure. But first, like, whoever put the order of the movies, right, and the shorts, amazing. Right? Amazing job, whoever ordered that. It was amazing. So for me, it was a moment like that. So, and mind you, like, I grew up in Long Beach in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, right? Like, beginning of the 2000s, so I saw all of the racial tension here, from African Americans to Mexican Americans, so like people forget that history, right? So we did do that, right? And imagine having a city like Long Beach and have how many thousands of Cambodians drop here, and then that community not even getting educated on us coming, right? And they already over here fighting over finite resources to begin with. And America disrupts and replaces, right? So, for me, that order of documentaries that came about, man, I saw my mom all over that. You know, like, and just the trauma of my own family is, I didn't know exactly how my mother's first husband was murdered until I came home. It was never told to me. And our family, that's how they survive, right? Put it behind them because the trauma is so harsh to deal with, and these beautiful documentaries speak to that come out in that part. So for me, my mother telling me I love you broke like that crap of that exterior of, again, being a gang member. I'm not here to say I didn't do what I did. I did. Absolutely. But I am no longer that. And it was because of moments of love and empathy and compassion that was shown to me that there's people in this room I don't even believe I should be right here right now. Right? But I haven't given that chance. So now, through my mother's heart, through her bloodline, I can change that. And it's my responsibility to do that. You know, so with such violence in this world, right? The way these stories need to be told through art, history is repeating itself. It's happening again. But that's because we've been in a disconnect with human community. We silo within our country. We silo within our cities. And then we forget something like that happened just 50 years ago. 6 years ago. Right? 2 million. So, to answer that question, sorry for the rant, but my mother was doing all these films, and for me to change, it was through the community of people that had life without parole, that didn't even see my skin color, and I came from a city full of hate like that, and they didn't even look at me like that. And those men are still in there. Still in there working, changing, and helping change the criticism within us, breaking those gang cultures. So, you know, I believe that with all my heart, like, those men and women that have made those decisions and have taken that responsibility should be able to say, I'm no longer that.
Speaking to, like you're saying about seeing the mother story, and I think this is another thing I was really thinking about. Like, you know, we hear a lot of these stories, you know, through this, you know, decade or so of 11 years now of CTFF, which is incredible. Is that, you know, we hear these stories, but they still feel new every time. right? Because every person's story is different, even though we hear like, okay, I was in these camps, I came here, and yet, you know, it still cuts every single time. And the bravery that it takes to stand up and come clean. They're like, I never told these stories, or I never heard this story that my mom never told me, or that my grandma never told me, or that I never told my children this or my grandchildren this. To finally, but now is the time to finally come through, and I'm going to tell it in this documentary. I'm going to tell it through this, you know, animated film, or I'm going to tell it in this way or this way. When someone finally gets the courage to come through, whether they're holding hands with their two best friends or they're doing it themselves or whatever, it's just absolutely incredible and freeing, right? And seeing the joy that comes through that release of finally telling their story is just absolutely beautiful. So I would love to hear a little bit more about kind of your inside take, your of what you saw happen with the three aunties when they finally were able to tell their story. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think through the process, you know, I came in with my own assumptions, my own way of thinking when it came to what healing looked like. I'm not an expert, I'm not a psychologist. I just knew that there's something missing because we know the history, right? We know the history books, we know generally what happened, but we don't know the specifics. We don't know the personal. So it's about, okay, how do I get to know your personal story because I care about you? You know, I'll say, Auntie, Mom, I'll say, I know you, I want to know your story. So it was also about creating that environment, giving them permission. This is all of us, right? Whatever you survive through, it's like, how do I see you as a person and not as like a statistic, as this like washed over history of the Cambodian genocide. Like, let's go deep, because that doesn't mean anything to me. What means to me is who you are as a person, what you lived through. They were all like young women. Sarat, she was the eldest. She was 15 years old, and her story is about, you know, experiencing as a teenager Cambodian New Year, and her relationship to her mom. Her mom gave her permission to like stay out late over the course of 3 days celebrating Cambodian New Year. And then you have Big, who was like 9 years old. She was a little kid. Same with Mom Selena, also really young, about the same age, 8-some years old, surviving what they have. So that, I did selfishly for me. Like, I want to know your story so I can understand on a deeper level what happened to you as a human being during that time. And, you know, I've interviewed my mom, and as a process, it's not to be said, yes, they are brave, but they also need to feel like they have permission, that it's okay, that someone is listening, that someone cares. Because they're also making these assumptions that, who's going to care? Who's going to listen? So that is the beauty of community, right? Coming around them and saying, I'm going to hold your hand, you're not alone in this. What you say, what you experience has value, what you say matters. You are loved, keyword love, right? Love, compassion, all of that. That was missing during, you know, the Khmer Khan years. So that was missing during the Khmer Rouge years. Love, joy, happiness, colors, confetti. That's what was missing. So it's like, how do we put the pieces back? How do we interject that? Because that's who we are. We're joy, we're love, we're spirit. So
Beautiful. Thank you so much. All right, we have just a couple more minutes, so I want to open it up to the audience. If you have any questions, please go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll take it up. So go ahead, anyone, please. All right, right over there. Please go ahead. You can talk loud, or we can try to run out of. Okay. Oh, nice. Very good.
My question is something that I often ask students. I run a storytelling program, but some students always ask themselves, like, Mister, I don't have a story to tell. And how do you encourage some of our younger individuals in our community, just like
and say, I look Lejuene, filmmaker on stage here, because you can always speak to that, more specifically, but you know, I've also taught in schools that I work with stakeholders all the time who are sorting out and figuring out a story. I think it's more about questioning, like, what do you care about? Like, what do you care about? What gets you excited? What are you scared of? So this is where conversation comes into play, and really getting to know, it's all based on personal. Who are you? What do you care about? What are you afraid of?
So what I would say is like how she mentioned, it's really mostly about figuring out what you care about and what is significant for you and like your mission. For me personally, in my story that I told, I'm just a very, very small part of it. A lot of the credit goes to my music team and my amazing participant who gave me the story to tell, and I'm very honored and humbled to be a part of it. For me, a big part of my identity is that I'm half Kimani and half Latino. And I think one of the biggest things growing up is like, one of the hardest things is like people who look like you tell you, you're not really like one of us, And so when I connect to like my mission statement and to like my, my ability to tell a story, I really connect with what my goal is. And what I really want to do is to blur the lines between, like race and, culture. I really just want people to connect with each other on a human level and to be able to connect people of all different walks of life.
That's great.
Thank you. All right, and I just want to add too, really quick to that, and if they don't know what they care about yet, then just ask them what they're curious about too. What's under that rock? What's behind that corner? Just like get them to start asking questions. Okay. Sorry? Oh, yeah.
So I just want to say, that's great that you do that with your students, but I don't think it's like a silver bullet. What's great is that you're extrapolating that out of them, right? Build a community around you of other educators that continue to ask that question, because young kids are still developing their sense of identity, right? So they don't know who they are at that moment, So, but the more you encourage that, the more they're gonna feel emboldened to say, like, oh, this is what I'm about right here, And then you're gonna have like, all kinds of stories just purged out of them, I feel, So that's my opinion.
Cool. Yeah. Curiosity, community, sharing, all good things. All right, let's get some more questions. All right, over here. Is that my time? One more minute. Okay, we'll do two more questions. I saw over here, over there.
I just want to piggyback on what you were saying too, right? Because sometimes it's difficult for like, kids growing up over about the kids. So is it like a process where you guys go through, is it like, hey, the story come out naturally, or like, it's just something that happens organically?
Yeah.
I know it's got to be a process, because it's hard to share a story, especially something so dramatic that you live when you live, especially when the parents go through like with the aunties and then the colors.
So it is a privileged position to say, oh, just tell your story. Like, why is it so hard, right? Of course it isn't easy, especially when you don't feel safe, especially when you feel shame, right? That was brought up. When we're so used to culturally not sharing. You're not taught that. So that's where someone needs to start. This is what we're doing, and we're saying, it's okay. There's going to be love and love, and at the end of it, you can actually feel better, right? So it's having an example, right? That's where films become a powerful tool for that. Say, hey, Mom, look. I'm saying if she's telling her story, like, again, this was a short, so it's just like, well, snippets, we could have done, I interviewed them for hours. So a ton more stuff. People put it online, with their permission, so you can get the full story. But it's enough to say, it's okay, we're safe. It's okay. Okay.
more question and then we'll wrap up. Okay, go ahead. Do you need the mic?
So,
No, she's good.
Dora and Kathryn, so humble and proud and moved to now they call you comrade. I wanted every single state and federal elected official to see your film. What message would you have for state and federal elected officials?
I think my ultimate message is change is possible. You know, as simple as that. Change is possible.
Yeah, I just think, you know, in the way we live in our community nowadays with the different levels of, you know, society, and state officials are definitely at the top tier of that and can control that, in a way. So I would say, if we don't have clean hands, who are we to judge? So, if we're people, if you curse in your mind about somebody cutting you off in traffic, or even if you act on it because of whatever reason, are you not still human? And I think that's how I would project to them, is that if you are a person, you are human, and you made mistakes, would you want to be held and punished forever for that mistake?
Great, thank you so much, everybody.
Real quick, just 1 second. I just want to take a moment on behalf of the Cambodia Town Film Festival. One second, real quick. I just want to take a moment on behalf of the film festival to recognize the filmmakers for your contribution. Not only, you know, we've been sitting here celebrating the 50 years after the genocide, right? The resilience, the community building. We've seen films about history, and your films are very much about the diasporic community and the healing that can come from that. So we just want to say thank you to you all, and we have recognitions here from the state of California for the work you've done, from the city of Long Beach, from Cambodia County first, Cambodia American politicians, Councilwoman Julie Sorrow. So thank you very much for everything that you do in helping tell these stories. And we have one more for Kathryn, for everything that you do for Cambodia Town, and for moderating. So 6:30, at 6:30 we have the harvest, but right now we're asking you, do not leave, the award ceremony and a performance. But right now you can clear the theater because we're going to sound check for the performance, and then we'll have you back at 6:30. Thank you.